Undercover CEO found a cashier skipping lunch to feed her baby. What happened next? The back hallways of Grand Market 12 were far from the polished aisles up front. Back here, fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting pale shadows on cracked concrete. Old boxes leaned against scuffed walls, and the air smelled like plastic wrap, spilled coffee, and something forgotten. Among the quiet stood a man in a gray utility shirt, clipboard tucked under one arm. Liam Reeve. To the staff, he was Mike, the quiet new maintenance guy, but behind the disguise was the CEO of one of the nation's biggest supermarket chains. He was not here to chat. He was here to observe. This was store number 12 on his month-long tour, 11 branches behind him, each assessed with swift efficiency. But this one, something made him pause. It started with a cashier named Jessica. She was always on time, her uniform tidy, her focus unwavering. Blonde hair and a loose ponytail, tired eyes that rarely lit up. But what struck Liam most, she never ate lunch. Each day at noon she declined food with a polite smile, clutching a fabric tote close and slipping away. When co-workers insisted, she would only say, "I am not hungry." Liam watched and wondered. On Thursday, he leaned against a storage room frame, pretending to adjust a light fixture. Jessica kept glancing at the clock, then her phone. The moment the break bell rang, she was gone, heading toward the basement, not the break room. He followed, silent, keeping his distance. The stairwell grew colder the deeper they went. Jessica moved quickly, stopping only at a plain gray door. She looked over her shoulder, hesitated, then slipped inside. Liam reached the door just as it was closing. He pushed it open slightly. What he saw stopped him cold. A dim glow came from Jessica's phone, casting soft light on an old storage room, bare concrete, stacked boxes, an old mop bucket. But in the center of the floor, atop a neatly folded blanket, was a wicker basket. Inside, wrapped in a soft cloth, was a baby. Jessica knelt beside it, lifted the child into her arms and kissed her forehead. She whispered something, then gently unbuttoned her uniform and began to nurse. Liam stood frozen. Her body curled protectively around the infant. The cold, cluttered room seemed to melt away. There was only the hum of a lullaby and the warmth of a mother's love. No panic, no apology, just quiet, radiant devotion. Liam's mind spun. She was not supposed to have a baby here. No manager would allow it. It was against every rule. But he felt no anger, only awe. How long had she been doing this? She adjusted a small fan toward the baby's face, then tapped her phone to check a live camera feed, a makeshift baby monitor. She was surviving the only way she knew how. Liam's breath caught. He was no longer a CEO in that moment, just a man witnessing something raw and human and brave. He should have walked away. But he stayed, invisible in the shadows, as Jessica quietly packed up. She kissed her daughter again before placing her back in the basket, then carefully arranged the blanket over her. Only when she rose and turned toward the door did Liam finally retreat. She never saw him, but he had seen everything. As he climbed the stairs, the familiar buzz of the store returned, scanners beeping, carts rattling, voices blending into background noise. But inside him, something had shifted. The clipboard under his arm now felt like dead weight. His mission here, efficiency reviews, staffing audits, suddenly seemed small. Because what he had seen had nothing to do with numbers or sales. It had everything to do with heart. "I thought I walked into a supply room," Liam whispered, his voice barely audible. "But I think I just stepped into the middle of a story I cannot walk away from." Jessica Reynolds lived in quiet corners. By day she stood at Register 4 in Grand Market, smiling politely, scanning groceries and asking, "Will that be all for you today?" with the practiced ease of someone hiding constant fatigue. Her voice never cracked, even when her heart did. But her real world existed far from blinking scanners and shopping carts. 3 months ago, she gave birth to Lisa Grace in a county hospital, alone. No flowers, no visitors, just the silence of a new life beginning without celebration. She had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, a straight-A student, full of hope, but that future vanished the moment her boyfriend walked away at the word pregnant. At 24, Jessica now lived in a single-room apartment above a laundromat, worked double shifts, and had no one left to call family. Daycare? Impossible. Her paycheck barely stretched across rent, diapers, and formula. So she made a choice. She bought a wicker basket and lined it with her softest towels. Found a baby monitor that linked to her phone. Discovered a tucked-away corner in the storage basement behind unused shelves and old mop sinks. Quiet, hidden, almost safe, and every day during her 20-minute break, Jessica went there. She would take the back stairs, clutching her tote tightly, unlock the door with a copy of the maintenance key, and step into her little world. There, on a clean blanket, she would lift Lisa from the basket and nurse her in silence. She watched the baby's chest rise and fall, hummed lullabies she barely remembered, held her daughter like the world outside did not exist. Sometimes she cried, silent, softly, letting the tears fall on Lisa's onesie, never letting them reach her cheeks. This room, dark and bare, was the only space where she could be a mother without risking everything. Because if anyone found out, she would be fired. She lived in constant fear. Every time she heard footsteps on the stairwell, every time a manager glanced her way too long, every time her phone buzzed in her apron and she had to pretend everything was fine. Then came Tuesday. She had just fed Lisa and was climbing the back stairs when she heard voices above, too close. Shelley, the manager, was speaking with the supplier right outside the stairwell door. Jessica froze. Her heart raced. Sweat gathered on her back. If she was seen now, everything would unravel. She waited, barely breathing. Seconds crawled by. Then Shelley turned and walked away. Jessica slipped past the corner and returned to the staff hallway, her steps steady even as her body trembled. Later in the restroom, she stared into the mirror. Pale skin, shadowed eyes, hair undone from a rushed bun. She braced herself against the sink, whispered, "Just a few more months. Just enough to save, to find help." She pulled a tiny sock from her pocket, rubbing the soft fabric between her fingers. She kept it with her always, something to hold when everything else felt like slipping. "I'm trying, Lisa," she whispered. "I promise, baby, Mommy is trying." But the fear never left. Fear of discovery, of losing her job, of losing everything. Still, every day she returned to the basement, to the baby, to the blanket, to the fragile piece of 20 minutes carved out of chaos. Because in that hidden room beneath a grocery store, Jessica gave all the love she had, and in the stillness of that quiet space, love was enough. That night, Liam could not sleep. He lay in the dim silence of his hotel room, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slowly overhead. But all he could see was her, Jessica, sitting on that thin blanket in the basement, her arms wrapped around a baby far too small, far too quiet. He had been through 12 locations in the past 3 months, witnessed countless inefficiencies, disconnections, even cruelty. But nothing like this. A young woman in a forgotten storage room giving her child everything she had, and still not nearly enough. And she did not ask for help. She just loved, quietly, fiercely, in secret. At 3 a.m., Liam got out of bed and opened his laptop. By morning, he had made a few quiet purchases. That afternoon, just after his shift ended, Liam returned to the basement. He moved swiftly, carefully, each step deliberate. From beneath his jacket he pulled out a brand-new baby cradle, clean white wood, soft cotton bedding, small enough to fit the corner space. He placed it gently in the spot where Jessica always laid the basket. Next to it, he tucked a package of fresh baby towels, a bottle of purified water, and a small thermos wrapped in cloth to keep it warm. Then, the final touch, a note. Written in his precise, steady handwriting, "No one should raise a child alone." He hesitated for a second, then placed the note where it would be easily seen, folded neatly. Before leaving, he reached for 3 empty boxes from a nearby shelf, and carefully stacked them around the cradle, not to hide it entirely, but just enough, a gesture of quiet respect, a shield for her secret, a promise that he was not here to expose, but to protect. That evening Jessica moved through the store in a haze. Her eyes stung from lack of sleep. Her arms ached from lifting crates during the early shift, and her chest, tight with worry, burned with the growing fear that Lisa might be coming down with a cold. As soon as her break hit, she rushed to the stairwell, her tote clutched tightly against her. Down the stairs, past the flickering light, into the familiar dark. She opened the basement door and froze. At first, she did not understand what she was seeing. The cradle was there, soft, white, foreign, her breath caught. Her first thought was panic. Someone found us. She dropped to her knees beside the basket where Lisa still slept, her hands trembling as she lifted her daughter into her arms. She pressed the baby against her chest protectively, her eyes darting around the room. Her heart pounded. Had someone reported her? Was this some kind of trap? And then she saw the note. She stared at it for a long moment, afraid to even touch it. Finally, with trembling fingers, she unfolded the paper and read the words, "No one should raise a child alone." She stared, read it again. The tears came slowly at first, burning, traitorous, but she could not stop them. They slipped down her cheeks in silence as she rocked her daughter back and forth. She had not cried like this in weeks, not when she skipped dinner to buy diapers, not when she overheard her co-workers whispering about how pale she looked. But this small anonymous kindness, it undid her. Whoever did this, they knew, but they had not exposed her. They had not punished her. They had not taken Lisa away. They had helped, quietly, without a name, without a face. Jessica looked around the room, suddenly softer in her eye. The fan still hummed, the pipes still hissed, but now there was a cradle. A real one. A safe place. She laid Lisa gently into the new cradle and watched her stretch her tiny fingers, peaceful in the warmth of the soft bedding. Jessica reached out, running her fingers along the wood. It was real. It was hers, at least for now. She whispered, "Thank you" to no one, and as she sat beside the cradle, knees drawn close, head resting against the cool wall, she let herself breathe, really breathe, for the first time in weeks. Jessica began to notice him, the tall new guy in the store uniform who moved a little too quietly, whose clipboard always seemed half-filled with scribbles. He worked the stockroom, but somehow he always appeared nearby, usually just before she slipped away for her break. Liam. He never said much, just a nod in the hallway, a polite good morning. But his eyes, sharp and intelligent, always seemed to linger on her for a second longer than everyone else's. At first she thought it was suspicion. Maybe he had seen something, maybe he knew, but then came the question. It happened in the staff lounge, both of them reaching for the same mug from the shared counter. Jessica, flustered, let him take it. He gave a small smile, then said, completely out of nowhere, "So, do you have a favorite fabric softener scent?" She blinked. "What?" she asked, caught between confusion and amusement. He shrugged, his tone casual. "I noticed some people here like lavender. Some go for citrus. Just wondered what you'd pick." Jessica's lips parted, and for the first time in what felt like months, she laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real one. Small, quiet, but genuine. "That's the weirdest question I've heard all week," she said, still smiling. Liam grinned back. "I'll take that as a win." That moment stuck with her. It was strange, how someone could break the weight of a day with a question that made no sense. But it had felt nice, human. From then on, the quiet glances became more frequent, not probing, not invasive, just present. Sometimes they would pass each other in the hallway, both heading in opposite directions, and say nothing. Other times, they would exchange a few words in the break room about how terrible the vending machine coffee was, or which aisle always needed restocking. Small talk. Harmless. but not meaningless. Jessica found herself glancing at the clock more often during her shifts, not just counting down to see Lisa, but also wondering if Liam would be near the stairwell again, if he might ask another strange question, if his eyes might meet hers, just for a moment. She told herself not to read into it. He was just being friendly, but it had been a long time since anyone had been kind to her without a reason. One afternoon, as she sat on the floor of the storage room, bottle-feeding Lisa, she heard footsteps upstairs, heavier than usual. Her pulse quickened, instinct tightening her grip on her daughter. But they passed by. Nothing happened. Still, her heart took longer to calm down than it should have. Later that day, back at the register, the sun angled harshly through the side window, casting a blinding glare across her screen. Jessica winced, trying to adjust her position. Liam walked by just then. He paused, watching her squint. Then, without a word, he reached up and gently adjusted the plastic blinds above the register. The beam of light shifted instantly. Jessica blinked in surprise. "Thanks," she said softly. He gave a small nod and turned to leave, but as he stepped away, his hand brushed hers. Just a light touch, but it stopped her breath. She looked up, and for a brief second their eyes locked. Not long, not intense, just still. Held in that glance was something neither could explain. A recognition, a question, a pull. Jessica looked away first, heart racing. Liam hesitated, then walked on. The rest of the shift blurred. She did not know what to make of it. She told herself it was nothing, that her heart had been so closed off for so long, she was mistaking kindness for something more. But later, when she returned to the basement, she found herself whispering to Lisa, "You know that man with the clipboard? The one with the quiet eyes? Mommy thinks he sees more than she wants him to." Lisa gurgled in response, and Jessica smiled. Not a forced smile, not one built to hide fatigue, a real one, just like before. And somehow, in that dark little corner of the world, something else had started to grow, something unexpected, something warm. It happened on a gray Wednesday, when the rain outside blurred the parking lot and thunder hummed low behind the clouds. Jessica was just finishing her shift, counting out her till, when the intercom clicked to life. "Jessica Lane, please report to the manager's office." Her hands paused mid-count. She had done nothing wrong. Her drawer balanced, her shifts were always on time. Still, her heart thudded. She walked down the aisle, with her badge swinging slightly from her chest. When she opened the door, Mr. Carter, the branch manager, sat behind his desk with a file open and a tight expression. Across from him stood someone she recognized instantly, Dana, one of the newer floor staff, eyes gleaming with a strange satisfaction. Jessica's stomach sank. Carter gestured to the seat across from him. "Jessica, we have received a report that you've been using the downstairs storage room for personal use, a non-work purpose." Jessica's blood ran cold. "Sir, But he raised a hand. "And furthermore, a few items from the back inventory, formula packets, baby wipes, were noted missing. You were seen carrying a bag into the basement multiple times." She looked at Dana. Dana smiled faintly, then looked away. Jessica's throat dried up. She could not tell them the truth. She could not say, "Yes, I was there. Yes, I bring a baby because I have no one else, but I never took anything." The truth was too dangerous, so she swallowed it. I understand," she said, her voice barely audible. "While we conduct the investigation," Carter continued, "we're asking you to step away from your duties temporarily. You'll be placed on unpaid leave until further notice." Jessica nodded. She stood, her legs trembling beneath her uniform. Before leaving the office, she placed a folded piece of paper on the desk, her resignation. Back in the break room, she packed her few belongings into a tote, her water bottle, her little calendar, a folded blanket she sometimes sat on. No one said a word. A few co-workers watched from a distance. Whispers trailed behind her as she walked out. No one knew the truth. No one knew she had just lost everything. Again. That night, Liam stood in the server room upstairs, where the security feeds were backed up. It had taken him hours of digging through blurry timestamps, but he had found what he needed. There. On the black and white footage, you could see Jessica descending the stairs with her bag. No theft. No formula packs tucked under her coat. Just her moving with tired grace and quiet urgency, every day, same time, same door. No crime. Just a mother disappearing to keep her baby safe. He copied the footage. Then, using an encrypted temporary email account, he sent the video to the store's management, attaching the time-stamped clips and a single typed line. False accusation. No theft occurred. Camera proves innocence. He did not sign his name. He never intended to. 2 days later, Jessica received a call. Mr. Carter's voice was unusually careful. Jessica, we reviewed some footage that was brought to our attention. We realized there was no evidence supporting the allegations. It seems this was a misunderstanding. We'd like to formally apologize and ask you to return. Jessica did not speak for several seconds. I appreciate the call, she said softly, but I am not sure I can come back. She ended the call gently. He returned only once to collect a few things left behind in the staff locker, and there he was, Liam, leaning against the wall by the stairwell. He straightened when he saw her, but his expression was unreadable. She gave a polite nod. He nodded back. They called you? He asked. Yes, are you coming back? She hesitated, then, without meeting his eyes, asked, Did you send that footage? Liam's breath caught, but his face remained calm. Watch footage? Jessica tilted her head. The one that somehow showed I was innocent, the one that no one should have had access to unless they knew exactly where to look. He was silent, and that silence told her everything. Jessica looked down at her hands. Her voice was softer now, not angry, just wounded. Why are you always there? Why do you know more than you should? Why? Does it feel like you are watching over me when no one else does? Liam did not answer. He did not need to. Jessica gave him one last glance, grateful but confused, and walked away. And Liam stood alone in the hallway, the weight of what he had done pressing against his chest. He had protected her, but in doing so, he had revealed something he was not ready to explain. Not yet. It happened on a quiet Friday afternoon. The store was running slower than usual, soft music playing overhead, and Jessica stood by register 3, scanning cans of soup and boxes of cereal without much thought. Then came the sound, a flicker of static from the wall-mounted television near the electronics aisle. The screen changed from a commercial to a live press conference, a sleek backdrop of navy and gold, the logo of the supermarket corporation. Jessica's eyes shifted up as the camera panned to a stage. Then, her hands froze mid-scan. Standing at the podium, speaking confidently into the microphone, was a man in a tailored navy suit, clean-cut, poised, familiar, too familiar. Her breath caught in her throat. Liam, not in a faded polo shirt, not in work boots, but as he truly was. The chyron below read, Liam Reeve, CEO of Crestmart Group, unveils new national initiative. The scanner beeped. The customer said something. Jessica did not hear. The world spun quietly around her, and all she could do was stare at the screen where the man she had trusted, smiled at, cried near, stood tall, important, and completely not who she thought he was. Later that evening, Jessica stood at her locker, her back straight, hands trembling. In her tote was everything she needed to leave this place behind. She opened a small notebook, tore a page, and wrote, Thank you. For the blanket, the silence, the light. Thank you for letting me believe I could be strong again. But I am not the person for you, and you were never just a stranger. That is why this hurts. Goodbye, Liam. She folded the note once, left it gently tucked inside the storage room door frame where she had always entered quietly, cradling her child close to her heart. That night, Liam arrived after hours. The store was nearly empty, lights dimmed. He went to the back, down the familiar stairwell. Each step felt heavier than the last. The door to the small storage room creaked open. Silence. No soft cooing, no hum of the minifan, no scent of baby lotion in the air. The blanket was folded in the corner, the makeshift cradle was gone. On the dusty floor where sunlight never reached, only the faint outline of where the basket used to sit remained, and taped to the wall, just above where the tiny head once rested, was the note. He read it. Once. Twice. Then stood very still. His hands curled around the paper like it might crumble. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply stood in the room where he had once found a secret cradle, and now found only absence. He had thought silence would protect her, that kindness without confession would not hurt her. But secrets, even kind ones, leave scars when they are revealed too late. And now she was gone. The emergency room smelled like bleach and panic. Soft cries echoed from behind curtains. Monitors beeped in rhythmic warning. Jessica sat on a cracked vinyl chair, clutching her daughter to her chest. The baby, so small, barely 3 months old, burned with fever. Her cheeks flushed red, her breaths shallow. Jessica had wrapped her in 2 layers, tried to cool her with damp cloths, whispered lullabies in a trembling voice. The nurse at the front desk had been kind, but firm. "We can admit her, but we'll need a partial deposit, or proof of coverage." Jessica had none. No insurance, no savings. Nothing but the blanket that now dampened with her daughter's sweat. She stared at the floor, eyes wide, heart pounding. Her hand shook as she fumbled for her phone, then paused. She had no one left to call. She leaned her head against the wall. "Please," she whispered, "just hold on, baby girl. Mommy will figure something out." Then she heard footsteps, and a familiar voice, low and steady. "I called ahead." Jessica turned. There he stood in the pale hallway light, Liam, no longer in disguise. No suit, no clipboard, just jeans, a soft gray sweater, and something in his eyes she had not seen before. Not power, not authority. Care. He walked past her without a word, spoke briefly with the nurse, handed over something. Moments later, the nurse returned. "We've got a bed ready. You can follow me now." Jessica turned to him, stunned. "What did you—" Liam met her eyes. "Later," he said gently. "Let's get her seen first." The room was small but quiet. Jessica rocked the baby gently on the edge of the hospital cot. Eyes red, movements slow. She had not eaten, had not slept. She had been holding her child for hours, afraid to even blink. Then Liam returned. No flowers, no grand speech, just a paper bag with baby formula, a bottle of warm water, a container of congee, a small spoon, and a cup of chamomile tea. He placed everything on the bedside table. "You do not have to be strong by yourself today," he said softly. "Not this time." Jessica stared at him. For a long moment she could not speak. Then her shoulders began to tremble. She took the tea. "Thank you," she said, her voice hoarse. I thought you left." "I did," he said, eyes fixed on the baby, "and it was the worst decision I have made in a long time." Later that night, after the doctors administered fluids and confirmed it was a viral fever, not life-threatening, Jessica finally allowed herself to breathe. The baby rested, cheeks less flushed. Jessica curled into the corner of the couch beside the bed. She tried to stay awake, to stay vigilant, but her eyes fluttered. Her body gave in. She fell asleep sitting up, her arms still slightly curled around herself, the cup of tea cold on the side table. Liam sat nearby, watching her with quiet intensity. He saw how her chest rose in exhausted rhythm. He noticed the way she still clutched the corner of the baby blanket, even in sleep. Then, slowly, he walked over. He lifted a soft hospital blanket and gently draped it over her shoulders. He sat down next to her. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply stayed, through the hum of monitors and the distant footsteps in the corridor, through midnight and into dawn. At some point in the early morning, the baby stirred. Liam moved quietly to the bedside, peering down. 2 round, drowsy eyes blinked up at him. Tiny fingers reached out, instinctively, without hesitation, and wrapped around his finger. Jessica opened her eyes, just in time to see it. Liam standing over the crib, the baby holding on to him, that unguarded look in his eyes, tender, raw, unafraid. Her daughter was smiling. Jessica's throat tightened. She whispered, She never does that with strangers. Liam looked at her. Then maybe, he said gently, I am not one anymore. Ruttengan Donane Song Khan 702. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the executive office. It was early, quiet, the kind of hush that only came before the city woke. In the corner of the room, surrounded by mahogany shelves and glass panels, sat something no one expected to find in a CEO's office. A crib. Small, simple, white-painted wood with soft green lining. Inside was no baby. Just a folded blanket, a tiny knit hat, and a silver plaque mounted above it. Where the best thing I ever did began. Liam stood across from it, his hands in his pockets, his expression softer than anyone in the building had ever seen. He had refused to move it, even when the board questioned the decor, even when visitors tilted their heads. This, he had said simply, is staying. Jessica sat quietly across from his desk, her hands folded in her lap. Her hair was tucked behind her ears. No makeup, just her. Liam pushed a small folder across the desk. It is yours if you want it. A project coordinator role, same benefits, flexible schedule. Jessica, he said, not open the folder. I cannot take it, she said quietly. Why not? Her eyes lifted to his. Because I do not want people to say I got it out of pity, that I was helped because I had a baby and a sad story. Liam leaned forward. Jessica, he said, I am not offering you a job because I feel sorry for you. I know, she replied. But I am not ready. Not for an office, not yet. He nodded slowly, then stood and walked to the crib in the corner. His fingers brushed the railing. I do not need a project coordinator, he said quietly. I do not need another assistant or another report. He turned back to her, his eyes steady. I need you, and her. I need a family. Jessica's breath caught. I have spent most of my life building things, Liam continued. Companies, brands, strategies, but I have never built a home. His voice trembled, just barely. And you made one, in a storage room, with nothing but a blanket and a bottle. Jessica's eyes filled. She rose from the chair, but before she could speak, Liam walked over and gently cupped her hands in his. I am not asking you to prove anything, he said. I just want a chance to be the one thing you and she can count on. Weeks passed, and the seasons shifted. One golden afternoon, in a quiet corner of a city park, 3 people sat on a weathered blanket beneath a sycamore tree. Jessica, barefoot, her blonde hair loose in the breeze, leaned back on her elbows. The baby, now fuller, stronger, laughing more, lay between them, kicking and gurgling at the sky. Liam sat nearby, holding a small rattle, pretending to be surprised every time it squeaked. The baby laughed. A full, round sound. Jessica smiled. There was no fear in her eyes now, no shadows under her smile, just sunlight, just warmth. The kind of peace that comes not from perfection, but from survival, from making it through the hardest parts and still believing in something good. The baby rolled over and reached up, grabbing both of their hands at once. Jessica looked over at Liam. He looked back, lips parted in a quiet, disbelieving smile. Neither spoke. They just watched the girl between them, this little light that had brought them from the shadows. He once hid her daughter in the back of a dim storage room, between crates and cleaning supplies, afraid the world would take her away if they knew. But love has a way of shining through even the smallest cracks, and in the most unlikely of places, under the flickering light of a dusty basement, 3 people found their way to the surface. Together. Into the sun. If this story touched your heart the way it touched ours, take a moment to reflect on the quiet strength of those who fight in silence, who love without conditions, and who build miracles out of almost nothing. Jessica's journey is not just a story. It is a reminder that even in the darkest corners, love finds a way to shine. If you believe in stories that heal, inspire, and stir the soul. Make sure to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. Every week, we bring you real, emotional, and unforgettable tales